Coronation Street, a week where the past refuses to stay buried. Deep analysis of the 19th to the 23rd of January 2026 episodes. Introduction, when Weatherfield turns inward. Coronation Street has always thrived on the quiet devastation of ordinary lives. It is not a show driven by spectacle alone, but by accumulation, years of unresolved trauma, half-spoken truths, and emotional debts that eventually come due. The week of Monday the 19th of January to Friday the 23rd of January 2026 exemplifies this philosophy with remarkable clarity. On the surface, this is a week packed with plot, secret identities, medical emergencies, family feuds, romantic implosions, and physical confrontations. But beneath the narrative mechanics lies something more coherent and more unsettling. Every major storyline this week is about exposure, the slow, painful unraveling of carefully constructed emotional defenses. Whether it is Shona Platt being forced to confront the sister she left behind, Ben Driscoll edging closer to the truth about his son, Roy Cropper questioning the authenticity of a connection he desperately wants to believe in, or Tyrone Dobbs finally snapping under the weight of accumulated betrayal, the message is consistent. In Weatherfield, the past does not stay silent. It waits. This analysis explores how each storyline contributes to a larger thematic tapestry, one that examines guilt, control, identity, and the dangerous comfort of denial. 1. Ben Driscoll, Will, and Megan. A story about authority and blind spots. At first glance, the Ben Driscoll storyline appears to be framed as a medical emergency. His sudden collapse, chest pains, and heart palpitations introduce urgency and vulnerability. But structurally, Ben's illness is not the story. It is the device that strips him of authority at precisely the moment he most needs clarity. Ben is a man defined by responsibility. As a father, pub co-owner, and moral anchor within his family, he is accustomed to being the one who copes. Coronation Street has often portrayed men like Ben as emotionally resilient but psychologically rigid, capable of endurance, less capable of suspicion. That rigidity is precisely what makes him vulnerable. Will Driscoll, the child who has learned to lie well, Will's storyline operates in shadows. His relationship with Megan Walsh is deliberately unsettling, not because it is overtly dramatic, but because it is disturbingly understated. The writing resists sensationalism, instead focusing on secrecy as a learned behavior. Will does not panic when his father collapses. He does not rush to explain himself. He compartmentalizes. That calm is not innocence, it is practice. The arrival of Lee, an old associate from Hull, shifts the tone of the narrative. This is no longer a private secret, it is a network. The Ginnell meeting, brief and unglamorous, is a classic Coronation Street setting, narrow, hidden, and deeply symbolic. Secrets in this show are never exchanged in grand locations, they are traded in places people pretend not to see. Megan's phone call to Lee is the clearest signal yet that Will is not merely being manipulated. He is participating. Ben's illness is narrative irony. Ben's presence in E at the same time as Will and Megan is devastatingly ironic. The father and son occupy the same physical space while being emotionally worlds apart. Coronation Street often uses hospitals not as places of healing, but as crucibles, locations where truths converge without warning. The tragedy here is not that Ben may discover the truth, it is that he may discover it too late, weakened and unprepared. Point 2. Jodie Ramsey and Shona Platt, the violence of unresolved childhoods. The introduction of Jodie Ramsey is one of the most psychologically complex arcs Coronation Street has undertaken in recent years. This is not a simple sibling rivalry. It is a study in abandonment trauma and the way it metastasizes over time. Jodie does not arrive seeking reconciliation, she arrives seeking validation through destruction. Weaponizing memory. Jodie's confrontation with Shona is framed as honesty, but it is strategic honesty. She does not lie outright, she selects. By accusing Shona of abandoning her with abusive parents, Jodie taps into Shona's deepest insecurity, the fear that survival came at the cost of someone else's suffering. What makes this storyline particularly disturbing is Jodie's interaction with Lily. Children in Coronation Street have always been emotional barometers, and Lily's role here is crucial. Jodie's decision to drip poison into Lily's ear is not impulsive. It is calculated. She understands that the most effective way to wound Shona is not through confrontation, but through maternal doubt. Kit Green and the Woods. Trauma without context. The revelation that Jodie was found with cable ties around her wrists near the site of the multi-vehicle crash is one of the week's most haunting moments. Kit's account reframes Jodie not just as an antagonist, but as a survivor, or at least someone who wants to be seen as one, yet Coronation Street resists giving us easy answers. The ambiguity is intentional. Was Jodie escaping someone? Was she staging something? Or was she both victim and manipulator? This uncertainty mirrors real trauma narratives, where truth is often fragmented by fear, shame, and survival instinct. The support group scene, mirror and projection. Jodie's attendance at the domestic violence support group is a masterclass in character writing. She listens, absorbs, internalizes, and then collapses. The meltdown that follows is not necessarily guilt or grief. It is recognition. Whether Jodie has experienced abuse or merely appropriates its language, the group forces her to confront the emotional reality of what she is invoking. Bethany's alarm at her behavior underscores a crucial point: pain does not justify cruelty. Point 3. Roy Cropper and Alice. Loneliness in the digital age. Roy Cropper's pen pal storyline is deceptively quiet. There are no raised voices, no immediate stakes, and that is precisely why it matters. Roy is a man who has lost profoundly and repeatedly. His relationship with correspondence is not romantic fantasy, it is ritual. Writing letters allows Roy control, reflection, and distance, the three things he values most. Nina as the voice of the present. Nina's teasing suggestion that Roy, take things to the next level, is playful, but it exposes a generational divide. Nina understands digital relationships as fluid and risky. Roy sees them as earnest. When Nina questions Alice's authenticity, the audience is invited to do the same. But Coronation Street is careful not to make Alice immediately suspicious. Instead, the tension lies in Roy's need to believe. If Alice is not real, the loss will not be of a person, but of hope. 4. Haley Cropper's legacy. Love that outlives conflict. Few characters have left a deeper imprint on Coronation Street than Haley Cropper, and her presence this week is both subtle and powerful. The anniversary of her death serves as an emotional hinge for multiple characters, particularly Roy, Carla, and Lisa. Betsy as catalyst, not manipulator. Betsy's attempt to reunite Carla and Lisa is motivated not by nostalgia, but by instability. She wants her family back, or at least recognizable. Unlike Jodie, Betsy's interference is clumsy but sincere. Roy's conversation with Lisa at the boating lake is a moment of emotional stillness. His advice to Carla is not prescriptive, it is permissive. He does not tell her what to do, he reminds her that happiness is allowed. The bistro confrontation, grief repeating itself. Lisa's fury at being ghosted is disproportionate, but understandable. Ghosting, in this context, is not about a missed lunch. It is about abandonment triggering unresolved grief. Her drunken confrontation at the restaurant echoes earlier losses, moments where silence replaced explanation. That she cannot remember the outburst the next day only deepens the tragedy. 5. Tyrone Dobbs and Carl Webster. When anger finally finds a target, Tyrone's confrontation with Carl is the culmination of weeks of suppressed frustration. Tyrone is not naturally violent, but Coronation Street has long depicted him as a man who absorbs pain until it erupts. Kevin's destruction of his living room acts as a visual metaphor for emotional collapse. When Tyrone sees the aftermath, Carl becomes the embodiment of chaos, the personification of damage left behind. The image of Tyrone pinning Carl against the wall with his crutch is loaded with symbolism. The crutch represents vulnerability, limitation, and endurance. Tyrone is literally weaponizing the thing that marks him as injured. This is not just rage. It is reclamation. Point 6. Narrative architecture. Why this week works as a single story. Although Coronation Street is built around multiple parallel plot lines, the episodes of the 19th to the 23rd of January 2026 are unusually cohesive. Rather than feeling episodic, the week functions like a single, carefully structured novel chapter, in which every storyline mirrors the others thematically. The key architectural principle at work here is convergence without collision. Characters do not all meet in one dramatic explosion. Instead, they move through the same emotional territory, secrecy, denial, exposure, and collapse, at different speeds and in different locations. This is classic Coronation Street storytelling at its most disciplined. Hospitals, cafes, pubs, ginnels, living rooms, each location becomes a pressure chamber rather than a backdrop. Repetition as reinforcement, not redundancy. One of the show's strengths this week is its deliberate repetition of motifs: collapsed bodies, Ben clutching his chest, Lisa passed out drunk. Boundaries crossed, Jodie with Lily, Lisa at the bistro, Tyrone at streetcars, ghosts of the past, Haley, childhood trauma, old acquaintances from Hull. Confrontations avoided until they cannot be, Roy and Alice, Shona and Jodie, Ben and Will. Each repetition deepens the theme rather than exhausting it. The audience is trained, subconsciously, to recognize that no one in Weatherfield is dealing with just one problem, they are dealing with the same problem wearing different faces. 7. Control versus chaos. Who thinks they're in charge? A defining tension across the week is the illusion of control. Nearly every central character believes they are managing their situation, until it becomes clear that they are not. Eva Price and Maggie Driscoll, Power as Performance. The Rovers storyline initially presents itself as a financial dispute, but it is fundamentally about who gets to define reality. Eva pretends to be shocked by Leanne's proposal, Maggie pretends not to see the trap being set, and Leanne pretends this is just business. None of them are honest, not because they are malicious, but because power in Coronation Street is rarely held openly. It is negotiated through implication, posture, and pressure. Maggie's fall is symbolically precise. She does not fall because she is weak, she falls because she is distracted by a battle she thinks she understands. Meanwhile, Ben, the man who believes he has stepped away from the conflict, physically collapses as a result of carrying too much unseen strain. Control, the show suggests, is always borrowed, never owned. 8. Jodie Ramsey, villain, victim, or something more uncomfortable. By the end of the week, Jodie Ramsey has become one of the most divisive figures in recent Coronation Street memory, and intentionally so. The writing refuses to offer a simple moral classification. The danger of emotional absolutism. Jodie's central flaw is not cruelty, but absolutism. She views the past as fixed and unforgivable. In her version of events, Shona is either wholly guilty or wholly innocent, and Jodie has decided which. This rigidity mirrors the mindset often developed by children who grow up in abusive environments. When survival depends on clarity, nuance becomes a threat. However, Coronation Street is careful not to excuse Jodie's behavior. Her manipulation of Lily is a red line. It signals that whatever pain she carries, she is now choosing to inflict it on someone more vulnerable. The cable ties, trauma or strategy. The revelation that Jodie was found with cable ties on her wrists is deliberately destabilizing. It introduces the possibility of severe victimization, but without confirmation. This ambiguity forces the audience into an uncomfortable position. Do we believe her because she might be traumatized? Or do we doubt her because she has already proven capable of manipulation? The show offers no answer yet, because the point is not the truth of the event, but the impact of uncertainty. Shona is left paralyzed by doubt, unable to protect her family without risking injustice. 9. The ethics of belief. Roy Cropper's quiet crisis. Roy Cropper's storyline is understated by design, but thematically essential. Roy is not being deceived yet, he is being tested. Faith as emotional risk. For Roy, writing to Alice is not escapism, it is an act of faith. After Haley, after years of loss, Roy is cautiously re-entering the possibility of connection. Nina's skepticism introduces a modern anxiety, the fear that vulnerability itself is foolish. What makes this storyline resonate is that Roy is not naive. He is choosing to believe, and that choice is what places him at risk. Coronation Street does not yet reveal whether Alice is real or false. Instead, it asks a more uncomfortable question. Is it better to risk being hurt than to refuse connection entirely? Roy's answer, for now, is yes, and that choice aligns him emotionally with nearly every other character this week. 10. Haley Cropper's presence. Memory as moral compass. Haley Cropper's influence on Coronation Street has always extended beyond her life, and this week reinforces why. Unlike other ghosts of the past, Haley is not a source of guilt or conflict. She is a moral stabilizer. Roy and Carla, grief that educates rather than destroys. Roy's conversation with Lisa at the boating lake is one of the most emotionally mature scenes of the week. There is no melodrama, no raised voice, only acceptance. Haley's death did not harden Roy, it refined him. He understands that love does not demand permanence to be meaningful. That understanding allows him to offer advice without control, a contrast to characters like Jodie and Tyrone, whose grief manifests as anger or fixation. Carla and Lisa. Love interrupted, not ended. The failed lunch between Carla and Lisa is tragic not because it fails, but because it almost works. Carla turning off her phone is a mundane action with catastrophic emotional consequences. It is not rejection, but it feels like one. Lisa's reaction is disproportionate, but grief often is. What this storyline shows is that unresolved love behaves like unresolved trauma. It waits for the smallest trigger to resurface violently. 11. Tyrone Dobbs. Masculinity at breaking point. Tyrone's confrontation with Carl Webster is the most physically aggressive moment of the week, but it is rooted in emotional exhaustion rather than violence. The long fuse finally burns out. Tyrone has spent years absorbing pain, failed relationships, family instability, physical injury. He has learned to be patient, forgiving, accommodating, but those qualities become liabilities when boundaries are repeatedly violated. Carl represents more than one betrayal. He symbolizes the pattern Tyrone is no longer willing to tolerate. The crutch is not incidental. It is a reminder that Tyrone's strength now comes with limits. By using it to pin Carl, Tyrone is asserting agency in a body that has been defined by vulnerability. This moment is not triumphant, it is necessary. 12. Parallel collapses. Why no one is okay this week. One of the most striking aspects of the week is that no storyline offers true relief. Ben survives, but his authority is weakened. Shona learns more, but gains no clarity. Roy hopes, but risks disappointment. Carla reconnects, but triggers pain. Tyrone explodes, but finds no peace. This is intentional. Coronation Street is not interested in catharsis here. It is interested in momentum. Every character is left mid-arc, mid-emotion, mid-reckoning.